If you watch to the end of today's video, I'm going to promise you one thing. I'm going to promise that I'm going to save you some frustration. I'm going to save you some heartache and possibly even save you some money. My name is Jack, and I've been in the preparedness industry my entire life. For example, I grew up on a rural farm in Iowa, and the times are tough in the 80s, and we just had to make ends meet, and we've been living a resilient lifestyle my entire life. I started sharing some of what I'd learned and what I was working on back in 2013 on my site, skilledsurvival.com. Since then, we've helped millions of people. And with that comes lots of questions, lots of people sending emails to us via questions about their mistakes they've made, telling us stories about their mistakes, their confusion, their anxiety. So I want to make this video on the top 10 prepper mistakes that people make that they really don't need to. They can avoid them, okay? So let's just jump straight into the first mistake. So the very first mistake I see a lot of people make is they get overwhelmed right out of the gate. So if you're new to this, if this is something you just started picking up over the last year or two, you may have already made this mistake, but trust me, getting overwhelmed is natural. There's so much information out there when it comes to stockpiling water, food. I mean, you can go straight into aquaponic systems and then you're like, whoa, where am I? You know, that's so advanced. So you need a program or a system to break it down, the top basic steps you need to take. And here's the nice thing. I've created that. I have that for you. If you go to Skilled Survival, you'll find it as one of the main posts, and we'll put it in the description below for you. So you can click that after you watch this video. But what it'll do is it'll break down the top 10 steps so you don't get overwhelmed, right? It starts off with 2 weeks of food, 2 weeks of water, a hand crank radio, et cetera, so that you can make progress without feeling that anxiety of being overwhelmed and not knowing, am I really doing the right thing, or should I do this first or that first, okay? So that's to help you avoid that mistake. The next mistake a lot of people make when they first get into preparedness, or even are still making this mistake after years and years of preparedness, I feel like people try to predict the future. And what I mean by that is people take a lot of time and energy to figure out what the next big event is going to be, whether that's a pandemic, whether that's a financial collapse, whether that's some kind of super volcano going to erupt. And while that is kind of entertaining to some degree to figure that out, it's not really helping you prepare, because I like to prepare for any and all events. I like to focus, instead of focusing outward on things I can't control, like what may happen, right? That's a societal thing. That's not something I can personally control. I focus on what I can control. And the things I can control are how resilient I am and my family is to anything in the future that comes my way, right? So we have a program called The Resilient Life. We'll talk more about that later in this video. And if you want to know more later, there's a link in the description. But The Resilient Life is a program that helps you focus on what you can control and improving your readiness, instead of spending all time and energy consuming tons of news and tons of stories that, while it's good to be informed, there's a point at which you're no longer being informed and you're more just like, not spending your time wisely. Okay, so we really should be focused on what you can control and trying to predict the future. Humans, we're terrible at it. So it's really just entertainment. It's not really very valid as far as a good strategy. Okay, so I really advise you to try to avoid that. The next mistake I see is comparing yourself to others in the prepper community, okay? There's going to be people who've been doing this a really long time, and I was even guilty of this when I got started. Like, I'd watch these videos and just be like, man, I don't think I'll ever get there, okay? And that can be very disheartening, but you need to focus on, again, what you can control, and comparing can get in the way of your progress, okay? I heard a quote one time that said, comparison is the thief of joy, okay? So when you compare, it steals a little bit of your joy, right? You're excited to get started, you're hopeful, but as soon as you start comparing, then you feel like, I'll never make it, I'll never be good enough. It's stealing your joy. Don't let that happen, okay? So really try to be careful with comparison. And here's the thing, like Facebook and social media and places like that are great places for information and sharing with others, but you got to be careful of the comparison component, because that can really undermine and make you feel a little depressed and anxious because of that. Okay, The next mistake people make is they share way too much information with other people, especially people who they live nearby, like a neighbor who maybe you don't completely trust, but you're just excited, so you're telling them about all the things you're doing. Or maybe a delivery showed up at your house and people across the street are like, "Hey, what'd you just get?" And I saw it come to your garage and you pulled it in, all that food, right? Like, so try to do that kind of stuff kind of under wraps. And if you have young kids, you gotta really watch them, because they'll go to school and if you're into this and you're talking about it, they're going to be sharing it with their friends and family. You don't want everybody to know that you have all these supplies, right? Because if, when things get rough, and even rougher than sure, we just went through a rough time in 2020 with COVID, but COVID-19. But if things were much worse, okay, you don't want everybody in the neighborhood knowing you have food and water and all these things, right? You just want to keep that under wraps. So just be careful who you share it with. I try to recommend only sharing with people you trust, truly, truly trust, like family members or a really good friend, and people that will pull their own weight. That's a coalition, okay? If they don't meet those two requirements, don't put them in your coalition, okay? Next up is people start buying food and acquiring water without really knowing how much they need for a given time period. So with food, we have a calculator to help people, because it depends on your age and your activity level to know how many calories you need to replace. And then you have multiple family members. So then you have to multiply that by how many family members. And then you have to multiply that by how many days you want to prepare for. So basically you need to do some very simple math. But the good thing is, down in the description, we'll put a link to a resource that'll help you calculate your food calorie needs easily. Okay. And then once you have that number and you know how many calories to buy to get to that much food stockpiling. Same thing with water, but water is even easier. Instead of having to know how many calories, I just say 2 gallons per person per day, and then multiply it by how many days you want. Some people go with 1 and 1.5 gallons, but I'll tell you what, the one big mistake I've come across is when people run exercises, like they do a power outage for the weekend, or a 1 week without power kind of thing, where they're using their water stockpile to see how it lasts. They're always surprised at how much water they use, because you need it to use it for cooking, you need it to use it for cleaning and bathing, some bathing, sanitation type things, and you need to drink it and consume it. And if you're in the heat of the summer, you're going to consume a lot of water. So just be prepared for that. And if you have any animals like a dog or a cat, they use water. If you have farm animals, oh my goodness, now you have to, you got to provide for them. So water, I'd rather have too much than not enough. So I go with 2 gallons per person per day. The next mistake I see is kind of funny, because people are so afraid of making a mistake that they don't move forward, right? That you're watching this video, that might be you. I wrote a post at The Resilient Life, which again, that's our membership blog, but the content on that blog is free for anybody. So we'll put a link in the description to that resource if you'd like to read that. But it's called "Failure is the Secret Sauce to Success." Okay, and I truly believe that. I think people sometimes analyze and plan, and they try to avoid mistakes, and so they're so worried about mistakes that they just plan and they plan and they plan and they plan, and they never move forward. But I think moving forward is critical. You need to take some resources, avoid the biggest mistakes. You're watching this video now, and then move forward. And if you make a mistake, that's okay. You just need to make sure your mistake is not fatal. Make sure you're not spending every dollar you own on one thing, and then that's it. So make small mistakes, learn from those mistakes, and keep going forward, okay? That's the way humans learn, is by making little mistakes, making adjustments, and then continuing to push forward through those mistakes, okay? So don't be afraid to make a mistake. But I'm glad you're watching this video, because you're going to avoid the biggest ones. Okay. The next mistake is people spend too much money or too much time on just one aspect of preparedness and resiliency, okay? It's a big, broad topic, okay? You can't spend all your energy and time on just food, because you have water, and you have communications, and you have escape and evasion plans, and you have on and on and on and on, right? Shelter. there's just tons of topics. So you need to spend a little bit of time in each one. And again, that's why I put together that 10 basic steps to basic preparedness, because I want to get your bases covered before you start going down the rabbit hole and deep diving into any topic that consumes your time and your whole life. Like if you decide, hey, aquaponics is the solution to all my problems, right? If I can get 3 or 4 tanks and get some fish and get some plants, and then I got this whole virtuous cycle, sure, okay? But I want to get the 10 basics in place before I go down that rabbit hole, okay? That is a good one. I do like aquaponics, but that's just one aspect of tons and tons of things you can look at. You know, there's DIY generators. The list goes on and on, folks. I just want to make sure that you got your bases covered before you deep dive, and make sure you're spreading your time out in all the areas of preparedness. The next mistake I see people make is when they're first searching for a source of information, for somebody to trust, so somebody that's going to give them the real deal, not just sales, they go ahead and sign up for lots and lots of emails. Okay, so they go to this site and there's a pop-up and they go, oh, okay, I'll put my email in, and then they go to this site and there's another pop-up or a scroll up and they go to this site. Next thing you know, they're on like 10 or 15 lists. And I'll be honest, most of these lists, I don't know. You just got to be very skeptical and make sure they're not just trying to earn money. Okay. There's a lot of marketers in the survival space nowadays who their sole purpose is to generate money off you and convincing you that this is the thing you need. This thing's going to solve every problem you have, but it's just not true. Now, there are some good products out there, and there are good people in the industry. I'd like to think that we're one of them, where, yes, we will show you some courses and some things that make sense and that we've looked at and tested and make sure that it's a quality product. But there's a lot of people that don't even do that. You know, they just say, how much am I going to get paid to send this to this audience on my email list? And boom, they send it and they make money. And, then you feel overwhelmed. So you're going to get offer. I just recommend you sign up for only the lists that really provide value. Sure, they can provide some courses and things but they're doing it in a way that you can trust. It's not just blindly sending you stuff all the time, okay? We send offers. It's very true. It's a one way we generate some money here at Skilled Survival to help keep us running and operating and producing content for everybody out there. But we try to do it the right way. We try to provide tons of education for free up front. And if at the end of the day you want our help to move forward, we have some tools, we have some memberships, we have some things to help you do that. The next critical prepper mistake I see people make is sometimes there's certain pieces of gear that people tend to avoid early on because they feel like it's too advanced and too scary. So a perfect example of this is a gas mask. You know, you see those images of people with a gas mask and you're just like, oh man, that just looks like doomsday, right? And that to some people that can look cool and to other people that can look really scary and like intimidating. Okay, gas masks are not that difficult to understand. We have a really great post on gas masks that helps you understand, and we educate you first, and then at the very end we show you our favorite solutions. Some of the gas masks in the industry that you can get, and they're very high quality at a reasonable price, and the type of filter you need to go with the gas masks, and all the questions you have related to gas masks to try to make that topic not so intimidating and scary. But it's a very important piece of your basic preparedness starting plan. If there is some kind of chemical attack or there's some kind of nuclear attack and the air you breathe is dangerous, or if the next pandemic is 10 times more deadly than the one we just had, you're not going to want to go to the grocery store with a face mask. You're going to want to go to the store with a gas mask, right? You want to filter everything you can through these masks. And if you don't own one, good luck getting one after the event happens, right? That's something you need to buy ahead of time. All I know is when people were trying to buy gas masks in March and April, when the pandemic kind of first was taking root and coming on shore to the US, you were having to wait 8 months for one. I mean, if it was 10 times more deadly, 8 months, you put your order in, but you're probably going to be dead before it arrives. So don't wait on gas masks. Don't be intimidated. That's a piece of critical gear. Just get good education on it, do a little research, and then you can go ahead and buy a good one. I recommend at least one per family so that one member could leave. If your budget's tight, one per family. If you have a little bit more resources, get one for each family member with extra filters as well. Okay, the next big mistake I see often is people say, I'm bugging out. I'm never going to leave my house. There's no way I'm bugging out. And I always say, you know what? For the most part, you're probably right. But what happens if there's a wildfire or a neighborhood fire that gets out of control and there's fires and there's wind and you need to evacuate now, right? Mass evacuation now. We see that a lot in the West where there's a lot of wildfires. You need a bug out bag because you can grab that thing, go out the door, and have some supplies, right? Some basic water filtration, some food bars, some hand crank radio in there. You just have a few supplies that are yours. And you don't have to necessarily ask for handouts and just be dependent on other people. You have a little bit of resiliency right there on your backpack. You have a survival knife, you have a few tools. Everyone should own one. You just never know when you have to evacuate. I understand some people are disabled, some people are don't want to leave their supplies, but there was people in the wildfire, this last wildfire in Colorado, who decided not to leave, and they perished because of it. And it was probably because they loved their home and maybe they had a ton of supplies they didn't want to leave, but that's foolish. Those things can be replaced. Your life can't, but just grab your bag and get the heck out of Dodge until it clears, and then come back and assess the situation and do what you need to do. But have some supplies with you at all times. Oh, and medical. You got to have some medical supplies in your bug out bag. The last prepper mistake I see people make is they try to go it all alone. Okay. Now, again, my earlier mistake about oversharing, we got to be careful about that. Okay. You don't want to overshare, but you also don't want to just do this all alone. You're on this video right now listening to me, and I'm helping you avoid these mistakes that I've seen other people make and that I've made myself in order to make your path to resiliency just that much smoother. Okay. Going it alone is you're going to make all the mistakes, and it's going to be a really hard road to get from the point you're at now to where you want to be. Okay. And my job is to make that as smooth and as easy as possible without spending too much time, energy, or money in the wrong places. So I think the answer to the lone wolf mistake is to become a part of our community called the Resilient Life. Okay. Instead of sharing with your neighbors the things that you shouldn't be sharing, oversharing, you can join this community of like-minded preparedness people called the Resilient Life, where we've broken down each aspect of preparedness into different badges that you can try to attain. And underneath each badge is a bunch of requirements. And these requirements are activities that you do and perform or goals that you meet. And as you meet them, you check them off. And what's cool is as you check them off to try to earn these badges, we keep on the website keeps track of your score. It's called your readiness score. Okay. And you can go from 0 up to 200 readiness score. And you get in there, you start clicking the things you've already done, and you find out what your score is today. And then you highlight some things that you want to focus on, and you focus on those things. And then you go from a score of, let's say you started with a 50, 3 weeks later, you've done a few activities. Now you're at a 60. And then you focus on more and you go to an 80. We've tied this community to a Facebook group that's available, and you can share with that Facebook group. And what's cool is those people are there to help you. It's sharing of information to help you succeed. When you have a question, they're there to help and answer it and say, hey, this is how I did it. This is how you can do it too. And people are sharing some really cool stuff on this Facebook group, sharing their bug out evacuation plans and their bug out bag supplies. They're sharing the food that they're finding is the best for storage of calories, like finding rice deals. They're sharing all kinds of information about their water systems and what they're going to put together and the best containers for their water systems and things like that. So this is real people sharing real information with each other, and it's very cool to see. And so not only do you get to track your progress, not only do you have a system that helps you walk through the next best thing to do and kind of motivates you to keep pushing forward and keep track of of that. You also have a community of people to help you out. So I think you should take a few minutes, click the link below when you get a chance, check out The Resilient Life. I think it's going to be the answer to helping you avoid as many prepper mistakes as possible, and it's going to help motivate you to get to where you want to go as far as how resilient you want to be for you and your family. Okay. Thanks for checking us out today, and we'll talk to you soon. Stay safe.